So, agenda item 8 is the petition debate, Halt the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Scheme. This petition has reached the 3,500 signature threshold to qualify for a full council debate, and 20 minutes is the maximum time allowed for this item. The petition organiser will be permitted up to 5 minutes to present the petition and its objectives. We will then proceed to the council debate. I will also ask the leader or relevant policy committee chair to respond at the end of the debate. As a reminder, this is not an interactive discussion involving the public. The issues raised in the petition and the comments of members during the debate will be referred to the leader and relevant policy committee chair for a response. So firstly, if I could ask Melissa Topping to present the petition, please. Melissa, you've got a maximum of 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa and I'm a resident of Redfield. I'm before you today not only as an individual, but as a representative of countless others who have been deeply affected by the start of the EBLN implementation. As a disabled resident, I rely on vehicle accessible routes to get to essential services like my GP surgery and home. The current plans will make this nearly impossible. The lack of accessible alternative routes will force me to cancel crucial appointments, leaving my health and well-being compromised. It'll also stop me going out on trips that aren't necessary. This is not just my experience. This is a common struggle for many disabled individuals in our community. This ill-conceived project being imposed upon our community without proper consultation is wreaking havoc on our lives and livelihoods, even before full implementation has occurred. We, the undersigned, are united in our opposition to this scheme. We are residents, business owners, disabled, elderly and vulnerable community members who have been and will be directly impacted by this misguided decision. The scheme's devastating consequences are clear. Unjustified traffic chaos. The scheme has created gridlock on our roads, making it difficult for residents to get to work, school and essential appointments. This has led to increased stress, frustration and wasted time. Thankfully, no loss of life as yet. Economic ruin for local businesses. Our local businesses, the backbone of our community, they're suffering. They have a reduced foot traffic already. Difficulty with deliveries and increased operating costs are threatening their survival. Health and safety risks have been increased with traffic congestion has led to higher levels of air pollution, endangering the health of our residents, particularly children and the elderly, with safety risks at night increasing. Our community voices have been ignored. The council has failed to listen to the concerns of the community. Despite overwhelming opposition, they have pushed ahead with this harmful scheme, disregarding the needs of the people. Rising crime is inevitable in dead ends throughout the scheme. This scheme is a colossal waste of public funds, money that could be better spent on improving public transport, cycling infrastructure, or supporting local businesses is being squandered on a project that is causing more harm than good. It is cutting off support networks to the most vulnerable, making it difficult for friends and family to visit. Their journeys are now trebled in time, so their time is now being spent in traffic instead. Beyond the impact on individuals, the closure has also had devastating effect on local businesses. Shops and restaurants, the lifeblood of our community, are suffering from significant decline in foot traffic and deliveries. This not only threatens their livelihoods, but also diminishes the vibrant character of our neighbourhood. The loss of accessibility will also hinder those essential services like deliveries. Many residents, especially the elderly and those with disabilities, rely on home deliveries for groceries and medications. The current situation will make it very difficult, if not impossible, for these vital supplies to reach those that need them. I urge you to consider the far-reaching consequences of this situation. The impact on accessibility, local businesses and essential services is profound. We need immediate action to restore access and support our community. We demand that Bristol City Council immediately halt this scheme and reconsider their approach. We need solutions that truly improve our community, not ones that create more problems. We call for a comprehensive review of the scheme with meaningful consultation involving all stakeholders along with all emergency crews, local. We need a plan that prioritises the needs of our community and supports sustainable, equitable development. We urge you to protect our community. I implore you, as our councillors, to please stand for your constituents. Together, we can demand a solution that prioritises the needs of our community, especially those who are most vulnerable. Thank you for your time, your consideration.
Okay. Thank you very much, Melissa. So now we'll move to the councillor debate. And I understand some councillors will be making maiden speeches today, so good luck with those. So firstly, I'd like to call upon Councillor Abby Finch to speak on behalf of the Green Group. And you've got 3 minutes, Councillor Finch.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you also to everyone involved in bringing this petition to us today and everyone who wrote in with statements and questions. It takes bravery, especially when this is something that affects people in such personal ways. What seems clear to me from reading this petition, as well as the public forum statements, both against and in favour of this scheme, is that there is a general need for less traffic congestion, reduced air pollution, thriving local businesses, safer roads for everyone, better public transport, and a council that acts with transparency and listens to the communities we serve. I think often these underlying shared needs can be lost in an era of polarising narratives. We often dig our heels in to protect and defend our position rather than really listen to what those who disagree with us are saying. So I ask all councillors, as well as everyone who lives, works or travels through the East Bristol Liverpool neighbourhood area, to keep an open mind, actively listen to different perspectives, and to be open to changing our views. This is something I will continue to challenge myself to do. I've said before that I am in support of this scheme, but I want to make it clear that the reasons I'm in support of it is that I want to see an East Bristol where people can walk, wheel and cycle safely, where there is less air pollution and where local businesses can thrive, as these things are what the EBLN has been designed to achieve. If it does not achieve these things, then I'll support finding a different approach. The issue is that at the moment it's too early to tell. The trial scheme is still being installed, and even once it's in, it will take a few months before people have adapted their journeys and we can start to properly see the effects of the scheme. Throughout the trial scheme, the project team will be monitoring its effects, including the levels of traffic and air pollution. But numbers aren't everything, and your feedback on how it's affecting you is vital during this period. I hear the call from this petition to end the trial immediately. What I would say is that if this trial were to end immediately, we'll never know if it would have worked, and all this will be for nothing. The money for the EBLN comes from a government grant specifically for this project, and we would lose out on that money if we were to halt it now. We are in a climate...
There's no public engagement at this point. Thank you. Please listen to the councillors who are elected to represent you. Thank you. Councillor Finch, please continue.
Thank you. We are in a climate emergency and transport is a huge source of emissions in Bristol. Also, the population of Bristol is growing. Keeping things as they are is not an option. Doing nothing means more traffic and more air pollution as the population increases. We need to be bold and we need to try something different. However, that will only work if we as councillors listen to what the people of East Bristol are saying, not just those whose views align with our own individual beliefs, but the whole range of views from the whole range of diverse communities we represent, especially those that are all too often marginalised and underrepresented. We need change, but we need change that works for everyone. That's why I welcome this petition and all the public forum statements we've received today. And that's why I encourage you all to reach out to your councillors with your experiences of the East Bristol Liveable Neighbourhood Scheme. Tell us what's working and tell us what's not working, and give us the details as well. As councillors, I hope we can all promise to listen to your views and feedback with an open mind and find solutions that work for East Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move to Councillor Tim Rippington to speak on behalf of the Labour Group, please. Councillor Rippington.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and the petitioners for bringing this here today. I know from the correspondence that I've received from residents in my ward that there are people who largely support the goals of the EBLN but see contradictions in some of the outcomes we are seeing, intended or otherwise. It's important the Council takes this opportunity to get this right. I talk to a lot of people who want to live in safer, cleaner streets, free from motorists who use their roads as cut-throughs to avoid traffic on main roads. These cars often travel at speed and make quiet residential roads hazardous, so I fully support the aims of livable neighbourhoods. However, it's clear that this first pilot scheme has some specific issues which could be avoided. The junction of Blacksworth Road and Church Road, for example, has always been an issue. If one or two cars are turning right, it blocks up all the through traffic across this junction. I've experienced this many times myself. This problem has become exacerbated by the closure of other roads and had severe knock-on consequences. Similarly, my colleague the Councillor for Troopers Hill has long made representations about the dangerous nature of Crews Hole Road and how this needed to be looked at as part of the livable neighbourhood. So while we do not support the reversal of this scheme, which must be allowed to run for its trial period, we are calling for urgent action to be taken on both of these issues, which predate the scheme and should have been taken into account in its design. In discussing the EBLN, we cannot ignore the true elephant in the room, the abysmal nature of Bristol's public transport system. These schemes are particularly successful in London, where they have a reliable network of buses and mass transit. If we want people to take up alternatives to cars, we must provide them. Our privatised bus network clearly won't do this. We need to move to a franchise or municipal system which works for Bristol's citizens, not for private profit. And we need a mass transit system that won't grind traffic to a halt. We have seen from the work of the Bus Task and Finish Group that the Council can work collaboratively with the Combined Authority towards delivering better bus provision when the money is available. Although we do not yet know the outcome of the deliberations of that group, providing additional services through the East Bristol livable neighbourhood has been one of our priorities. I would also like to reiterate that on a project as ambitious as a livable neighbourhood, it's important that people's genuine concerns are listened to. That is not telling people, as certain Green Party councillors have, that their concerns aren't valid, and even that they should move to the countryside where driving a car is supposedly more socially acceptable. These comments have been widely shared on social media. I raise this because we want the livable neighbourhood to work. Engaging people like that isn't conducive to these aims. So in conclusion, I hope that the Chair of the Transport Committee listens to the genuine concerns which residents have relating to this scheme, especially to the points that I have made earlier. The Council can deliver a scheme that works for everyone. I sincerely hope it does. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Coombs to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, us politicians tend to be confident people, or at least present as such. In order to stand and win elections, we need a good deal of self-belief. So just to debate in this chamber, to persuade others, we first need to convince ourselves that we are right. But for public engagement, co-design and a pilot project, as this is described, we need to be curious, empathetic and open-minded. We need to accept that we don't have all of the answers and be willing to change our mind. This council has recently moved from a system that only acknowledged one person's point of view to a collaborative approach that seeks to incorporate multiple perspectives. Those of us that campaigned for that change should ensure that this plurality extends to all the decisions that we make. The East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood pilot project was established by the previous administration, but this current council needs to take ownership of it. So who wouldn't want to live in a livable neighbourhood? Less through traffic, resulting in quieter, less polluted, people-friendly streets. I'm quoting from the project website, which is universally positive in its description of the project and its possible effects. Lots of people have registered positive statements in favour of the project at this meeting, which is an important part of the story. But on the other hand, 760 objections were sent in to the statutory consultation from people concerned that the proposals wouldn't make their lives better. Issues like longer car journeys, lost parking spaces, more traffic on Church Road are understandable concerns, but they don't appear in our public-facing materials. So if we're trying to work with residents, we need to actually talk about the concerns raised through consultation, as well as the benefits to health, active travel and community. We should acknowledge that no change is universally beneficial, and pretending that it is simply discounts those contrary perspectives. That's the kind of attitude that this city threw out in the mayoral referendum 2 years ago. I think it also explains why over 3,500 people were motivated to sign this petition in order to spark this debate today. The petition calls for proper consultation and consideration of the full impact of the scheme, and I can't disagree with that. I hope that the pilot project is a success and residents see real benefits to their health and travel habits. At the end of the pilot project, I want us to look at the data, see what has worked and what hasn't. The timeline on the project website does not currently show an end date for the trial, nor a decision gateway for reviewing the data and deciding whether to implement the scheme permanently. So I think that our commitment to following the evidence would be a lot more credible if we did publish those dates.
Thank you. And now Councillor Weston to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. I thought I was going to be the contrary opinion, but it seems that suddenly, in light of a very large and successful petition, congratulations, that other parties seem to have changed their mind. It's fair to say that the Conservatives have been, should we say, more traditionally sceptical of livable neighbourhoods, and it's no surprise that as it's trying to be introduced, that we're hearing that now. If livable neighbourhoods aren't designed properly, then they will cause mayhem for a large number of people living in those communities. And we're seeing that now, where East Bristol is starting to gridlock up because it's not being put in properly. And what's really concerning for me is that, as other colleagues have said, is when we did the consultation on this, concerns were raised, yet they seem to have been ignored, not recorded and not reflected in what was being put out. And I did note the comment on the, you can move to the countryside where cars are more prevalent and more useful. I mean, it's an intriguing view, it has to be said, for a politician to express that to residents. At the moment, the East Livable neighbourhood is not working as I think anyone would say. I know it's in the embryonic stage, it's being installed and all the rest of it, but it isn't working. Now, Albert Einstein said it was insanity to basically, I'm paraphrasing, to do the same thing again and again and expect a different result. Now, my fear is if we're not careful, we're going to do the same thing again and again when we look at South Bristol and wherever else we try and put these in, and the same thing will happen. Where those voices that disagree, I'm loving this, by the way.
It's a rare occurrence, Councillor Weston. Don't get used to it.
It's so unusual. Start doing it. Right, there we go. I've lost my train. Insanity is doing the same thing again. I hope for a different result. And if we're doing this in South Bristol and other places, we have to make sure we're giving voice and listening to those that have genuine concerns. I also think Albert Einstein would agree with it's insanity to press on with something that isn't working. And at the moment, I don't believe East Bristol Liberal neighbourhood is working for the communities out there. And even though I'm not a councillor in that area, my inbox is filled with those saying that it's not working. It's affecting people in my ward, in my communities, as they try and go about their lives as well. So I urge us to pause and rethink and pay attention to those voices, even if we don't agree with them. And they are clearly here today. Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Plowden, would you like to respond as the relevant policy committee chair to the debate? You've got 3 minutes if you do.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who signed the petition and who has today come from East Bristol for engaging in local democracy. I'd like to acknowledge there's a great deal of public concern about this trial, but also a lot of support. I need to say we hear the very real concerns. We hear how hard it is for people to get their kids to school and get to work on time. We hear the anxieties about air quality outside primary schools as children arrive. We hear how businesses are afraid of a fall-off in passing trade. We hear how some people are very anxious indeed about their personal mobility. Cars have given so many people freedom of mobility, but they're causing congestion and increasingly jamming up our city and our economy. We also hear positive stories, like the many people who say they now feel safer to cycle. One of them, a woman in her 40s, that people feel that our roads are safer, especially when taking their kids to school, and how some of them are now walking, not driving. Stories like the cleaner who's rearranged her schedule so she now does all her addresses locally in the same day. We also know that across the country, the vast majority of livable neighbourhoods have bedded down after initial problems. We know that the bus services in Bristol do not compare with London. We're investing an extra 4.7 million in extra buses, with livable neighbourhoods as one of the priorities, as mentioned by Councillor Tim Rippington. I want to make sure that everyone here knows that the project has delivered 5 separate letters to every single domestic and commercial address in the area, a total of 31,000 letters. That we are every day monitoring the traffic and adjusting the signals as best we can. That if we do nothing, the 10,000 extra homes and over 20,000 extra jobs in Temple Quarter, right on the border of the trial, along with population growth across the city, will mean that we simply
members of the public,
overrun
can
with
I?
congestion.
Sorry, Councillor Plowden. Sorry, members of the public, can I ask you please to stop interjecting when a councillor is speaking? This is not a public debate. This is a councillor debate. Please try to keep quiet at this point. Thank you, Councillor Plowden. Please continue.
So if we do nothing, we'll be simply overrun with congestion. I want to make sure that everyone knows that this trial contains one of our poorest neighbourhoods, with the lowest rate of car ownership and amongst the poorest air in the city. Science shows that this affects everyone's health. Most worryingly, this includes the development of children's brains and their ability to learn. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that the DFT-compliant appraisal shows a return on investment of £12 for every pound invested in this scheme. So I want everyone here to consider what they can do to help change their own travel behaviour. It doesn't have to be every day. Just a 10% reduction in local trips will make a huge difference. I want everyone to consider how they behave on the roads. Aggressive driving is not something that's just started in recent weeks. And finally, I'd like to remind everyone here that this is a trial and we are ready to make changes. But we need 6 months to do the comprehensive evaluation of the scheme as petitioned. And I will, responding to the comments today, make the evaluation criteria available shortly. To be entirely honest, I and the local councillors are watching with bated breath to see the evidence as to how it is working. We know these sorts of schemes have been controversial up and down the country. We knew that before we started. And despite that, the Green and Labour parties supported this scheme in May's elections. And we remain resolute to stand by that pledge, to keep listening, but also to act on evidence, not emotion, both here and in South Bristol.
Thank you, Councillor Plowden. Thank you very much. So I now ask Council to note the issues raised in the petition, together with the comments of members during the debate at this meeting. This matter will now be referred to the Leader and relevant Policy Committee Chair for consideration and to issue a response to the petition organiser. And thank you very much for bringing the petition to full council. That concludes agenda item 8.